You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode number 25, where Steve, Ricky, and I all decide that we just want a free-for-all. So we each came up with a few things that we wanted to talk about, and we decided to share with the class. We cover a little bit of everything from the latest with Defense Distributed's Cody Wilson to some big changes coming from Mr. Steve, and we do get a little serious about politics and our own personal views. Couple things on that. One, our own individual views and opinions are just those, not of Independence Indoor Shooting. And, you may not agree with everything that we say. In this one, we actually don't agree with each other sometimes, so make sure you keep in mind that it's just a conversation, and if you want to send us any feedback about it, podcast@iishooting.com is the best way to do that. Also, of course, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts, and if you could, make sure you leave us some feedback there as well. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode number 25, The Free-For-All. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting, episode number 25. Wow. 25. We've been doing this almost half a year, if you think about it.
And it's a sad day for the podcast.
Why is that, Ricky?
Well, I'll let Steve tell us.
God, I do not have cancer. I'm not dying.
He's pregnant.
It's a miracle.
Steve's got a lot to explain.
He got some explaining to do. Yeah, so many people already know in the store, but I have changed my endeavors in life. I'm not going through any kind of transition, air quotes, anything like that, but I'm...
You are going through a transition.
Yeah, but
you're not getting,
a physical transition.
You're not going to get pregnant.
No. So yeah, I've changed my capacity in the store as far as my position, and I moved back home.
Yes, to Idaho Falls.
Eastern Idaho, yep.
So you are here with us right now, on location.
Yes.
But we will be continuing the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. With me.
Yes.
I'm not leaving the podcast.
Well, that's what he believes now.
So what's really going to happen is we're going to work on a phasing out process for Ricky. No. Yeah, the podcast will be a little different, maybe. Might sound a little different, but yeah, I'll still be a part of the podcast. I'm still employed with the company. I'll be teaching. Like, for example, today I taught a class all day long, and I'll be hopefully doing the AR build classes with Ricky still. And
I still think that he's going to get too busy.
I don't think so.
Well, can you
get over here?
Well, too busy with what though? So can you talk about what your new endeavor is going to be?
Sure. I don't see why not. And I'll get a phone call. You shouldn't have said anything. So I did go back to doing trim work. Like I say, my experience in fine finish carpentry. Went and jumped back on that bandwagon just to fill in a void until I finish all my education to be a rep for U.S. Law Shield.
Awesome. And we're big fans of U.S. Law Shield here at Independence.
Absolutely.
So you're still on the team, still a friend?
Yes, and I'm still in the industry. The rule goes, if you get into the firearms industry, you don't tend to leave the firearms industry. And like I say, I'm still affiliated with the store. I'll still come and teach, but I will represent U.S. Law Shield, which, we can talk about that a little bit too, what the company is. But yeah, in the Idaho Falls area.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as you are doing firearms evangelism. You're spreading the good word of firearms.
You are healed
to everybody. Sir, have you heard the word of John Moses Browning today?
That's right.
So why don't we? This is going to be kind of a free-for-all episode.
Yeah.
And if it sounds a little bit different, we're actually recording in the Independence Indoor Shooting small classroom.
Yeah, the smallest class. So we got a little bit of an echo. The echo might sound familiar. This is the same room we recorded, a couple episodes actually.
Yeah.
Anytime we had a guest. Yeah, Brenda Bruno's and then Chris from Australia.
Australian Chris was here. Does he listen to the podcast?
Yes, he does.
That's great news.
Mm-hmm. So we have international listeners.
We are worldwide.
I
could call you Pitbull.
Worldwide.
You got the hairstyle.
Yeah, but I actually make it work.
We'll get you. Ooh, wow,
Bam.
Shots fired. It's kind of a free-for-all episode. We've all got a couple different things to talk about. Mm-hmm. But why don't we start with your new endeavor with U.S. Law Shield? Independence is kind of partners with U.S. Law Shield to a degree. I know they're going to be teaching some classes here, or have they started already, I think, right?
Yeah, they've had quite a few.
And that's one thing I really like about the organization. That's why I decided to make that transition is, first of all, it's a legal defense network. You pay so much a month or a year, and you're covered legally if you have to use not only a firearm, but anything in defense of your life or somebody else. Guaranteed, if you have to take a life in defense, you're going to go to court. The nice thing about Law Shield, U.S. Law Shield is with that membership, they cover your legal fees 100%.
Is that like the co-op medical insurance that they have nowadays?
I guess you could relate it to something similar to that, absolutely.
Okay.
Not everybody, I doubt every one of their members are going to interact with a legal thing at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. So there's a large pool of money. The reason why I like U.S. Law Shield more than some of the other ones, like name drop, USCCA, even the NRA has some stuff like that. They usually have caps on how much they'll cover you with, maybe $1 million or $500,000. U.S. Law Shield covers 100% with your membership, which is nice.
Well, and that $500,000, $1 million is actually not an unreasonable amount of money in legal fees.
Oh, absolutely.
And court fees when a defensive shooting or a home defense situation or anything like that
it goes
happens
very quickly.
And not to mention the reason behind that rather is because of not only a criminal case, but then a civil case following closely after.
And almost 100% guarantee it's going to go right to civil because the family's going to want to, they have skin in the game too, right? The family of the bad guy who, he was just a good young man. All he wanted was a hug. and so you're going to have to fight that too. And U.S. Law Shield covers that civilly and criminally 100%, all the way up to grand jury. It's pretty awesome.
When will U.S. Law Shield not cover you?
If you murdered somebody.
When you're obviously in the wrong.
Yeah, when it's 100%. So if it seems like a good shoot, I guess to coin a phrase, and you still are found guilty after the fact, that's covered. But if it's blatant, like, I got in an argument with my wife and she didn't do the dishes, so I shot her. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to cover you there.
No, you're on your own. And then they have some other add-ons too for cheap, I think. Like you can cover all your kids if they have to defend themselves for $2 a month.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
Yeah.
And then they have some other add-ons too. It's pretty awesome.
Well, and there's been cases where there's been teenagers at home alone or even kids a little bit younger, and there's been break-ins. And
absolutely.
I think there was, and maybe I'll look it up, and if I can find it, post a link, but like a 13-year-old girl or something who had to defend herself from like three burglars or something. In
Rigby last year, I believe it was last year, small town Rigby, if you guys know where it's at, there's about 5,000 people in that town, eastern Idaho. Some drunken dude decided he wanted to break into the house, and it was a 14-year-old kid all by himself. Mm-hmm. And he took matters into his own hand, and it was a good shoot. But still, there's still going to be anytime a bullet leaves your gun, or you use that knife, or you use your fists for that matter, there's going to be a lawyer attached to the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just Googling a teenager defends home from burglars. There's a couple of stories from 2012. A 12-year-old girl in Oklahoma shot an intruder during a home burglary.
And I think she was a competitive shotgun shooter. One of those was they broke into the wrong house that day.
Yeah, they really picked the wrong one. There's another one, and I'm just reading the headlines, but homeowner's son kills 3 would-be burglars with AR-15. Ooh. Black rifle time.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Those are scary.
They're scary for the bad guys.
How's your aunt's shoulder, by the way?
She's good.
Yeah,
she loved it.
okay.
She had a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah, she didn't...
Yeah, you guys went and shot full autos after that.
Yeah, we went to full bore, actually. Last episode, my aunt came to visit here in Idaho, and... we went and she had never shot an AR-15 for the first time. You can check out the episode, obviously, on Stitcher and Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, everywhere else. But we went shooting, shot the AR-15, shot a suppressed AR-15, which was great. And then I asked her, I said, okay, well, let's go shoot, handguns a little bit. So I grabbed a couple out of the rental counter, and we shot my Walther PPQ. We shot an HK VP9. We shot a CZ75 because I wanted to show her the difference between hammer and striker fired and, a full steel frame gun and as opposed to a polymer guns. I think I need a CZ75 now because, that's a nice pistol. But then So we shot that for a little bit, and I go, well, do you want to shoot full auto? She goes, well, I don't know. I'm kind of nervous. I mean, I will do it together, because I never shot anything full auto either. So Joe's putting all the fun stuff up on the wall or whatever, and I'm thinking, okay, what do we want to shoot here? We could try an M4. We could try, I think the M240 is going to be, or the 249 is going to be too much, so maybe we'll skip that one. Then I forgot we had an MP5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's the one. That's perfect. 9mm, real nice. German engineering.
Real nice.
So got that. We each got 50 rounds, I think. Yeah, 50, 60 rounds each, something like that, and loaded up the mags. Joe brought it out, and both shot full auto. I did a mag dump. It was great, man.
The one thing I love about the MP5 is it's just easy to control.
Oh, it's so easy. I mean, by the time I had my last 5-10 shots, I was right in the 10 ring. So that was pretty cool. Even Joe was impressed.
Yeah, so great gun to shoot.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't shot the MP5 or any of our autos, don't be scared to come try them out.
Oh, it's great. And I will say that we don't just send you out with the full auto and go. No. There's an employee with you, helps you go through the manual of arms, and also puts their hand on your shoulder to make sure that you're not going to fly back and put rounds into the ceiling or anything like that. So it's a pretty fun experience, and having an employee there with you is nice to know too. So
yes,
it was really fun.
Sorry to bring it back, but I'm curious about U.S. Law Shield.
Oh yeah, that was a huge sidebar for me, but
no, but it was good. It was good. I just want to bring it back to U.S. Law Shield as far as how much does it cost per year, and what add-ons can you do? You were talking about the children's add-on.
Yeah. So if you pay by the month, there's an initial fee of $19.95, and it's $11 a month. I mean, most people are spending that much in coffee a day.
Truth.
Or it's $131, I think, is what it ends up being a year.
Super cheap.
Yeah, it's affordable, and honestly, it makes sense to me. I wouldn't have made that change if I didn't believe in the product, like I said.
And I will say this is not a commercial for U.S. Law Shield.
Definitely not a paid advertisement.
We're not even sponsored by U.S. Law Shield. This is just talking about your new endeavor. Mm-hmm. We may be sponsored one day by U.S. Law Shield.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. You never know. They also have multi-state coverage, and it's good in every state and district. So D.C. and Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
If you have to defend yourself and you have that multi-state coverage, which I can't remember the price of that right off the top of my head. I have to look into it.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah, it's totally worth it that way too.
That means
if you travel a lot. Now, your concealed carry permit is not recognized in 50 states. So like I say, if you have to use your hands, maybe you grabbed a chair and saved your life that way,
Or a bat or whatever.
Even say you do carry in a state that you're not supposed to be carrying in, and you do use a firearm.
That may not be covered if you broke the law.
Okay.
Because ignorance is no excuse, right? And we teach that in our classes.
I'm curious, though, because you do have these people that are going across state boundaries, so they're going from... And I might show ignorance with my geography here, but...
They're going from Idaho into Delaware.
Yeah, they're going from Idaho to Delaware.
Can you tell me every state along the way?
They just crossed right over the border. No, but Pennsylvania and Rhode Island or something like that, or New Jersey, is it?
They're all right there.
I think they touch, don't they? Anyway, sorry, this is going to be pathetic. Anyway, there was that lady.
Yeah, she went into New Jersey. Yeah,
New Jersey from Pennsylvania, I believe it was.
Over the bridge.
Yeah, and...
yeah, she got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but so for that was ignorance. But would you guys have covered it?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Luckily, when you get to a member, there's phone numbers on the back of your membership card, and there's questions you can ask 24 hours a day. Actually, no, that one's not.
I tried to do that one time.
Yeah, it's a
Law Shield, but
it's not 24 hours a day. The helpline's not 24 hours a day.
But you can call and get
some answers.
From what they told me is if you're traveling, you need to call within a week before to get
so they can get answers and stuff for you.
And you're actually talking to the attorney.
Then that's the other nice thing is the second number on the card of the emergency hotline is if you are involved in a good shoot, you call that number, and it's an attorney that answers the phone, and it's an attorney from the state that you reside. And it's the guy that's going to represent you, or gal that represents you. which is nice. You don't have to worry about, he'll call you back in 45 minutes. No, it's the attorney. That way that lawyer knows the laws in the state and is relevant to who you are and where you're at, which is another huge benefit. You're not going to get some dude from Louisiana come up and shoot, my client's awesome.
So your territory is going to be eastern Idaho, northern Utah.
I don't know about northern Utah. For right now it's just eastern Idaho. We'll see. It might grow from there.
The opportunities are endless.
There's not much over in eastern Idaho.
No, there's enough.
There's quite a bit. I know of a lot of ranges over there. So if you guys, side note. So you'll notice a lot of background noise today. So we're actually, it's 6:45 p.m.
Yeah, on a Saturday.
On a Saturday night. So we got classes, we got customers, people looking at us like we're weird.
We're in an open store today. Normally we record this before hours.
Yeah.
Before the opening hours to get,
And in a way, it's kind of fun to have people look in the window, right?
My back's to the window, so I don't see it.
We did that by design, so you didn't scare anybody.
I would forget how to talk again if I saw somebody staring at me.
The back of his head is just as scary as the front.
That's right. Do not turn around. But you're excited, and we're excited to see where you go with this, and obviously wish you the best. Yeah. But you're not going anywhere either, so you're going to still be doing the podcast with us.
Absolutely. I didn't want to give up that. It was kind of the three of us, we brainchilded it all together, and I don't want to abandon that.
Well, you also came up with the name Range Minded, so
so it's kind of mine.
Yeah, I can't even think of a better one.
We would change the name if he left. We'd change it to Ricky's Podcast.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Ricky's Podcast.
No, and like I said, I'm going to try and involve myself as much as possible in instruction and stuff like that. Because this is still my love. This store is blood, sweat, and tears, man. I got stuff. I was here from the beginning.
Yeah.
And wrote a lot of protocols and stuff like that. So I get emotionally involved when I see things different on the range that I created and somebody else doesn't.
Right. It's hard to step away from something like that.
Honestly, I got in yesterday, which would have been Friday if you guys were listening, and it was hard for me to not yell at employees and tell people to get away from my desk.
Because it's not your desk anymore.
No kidding. It's like, here, move. I got to get on my... Oh,
it's not yours anymore.
I noticed you looked kind of frustrated when you were...
Oh, man. Yeah, we'll just leave it there.
Steve get frustrated over something? No, refuse to believe it.
It's hard for the former number two guy to get involved and be like, get your butt on the floor and get to work, right?
Yeah.
It's not my position anymore.
Well, you could still, but nobody doesn't have to listen to you. That's the thing.
Well, they still have to listen to me.
If Steve yelled, they would still listen.
I've never actually seen Steve.
Well, if he frowned at him, let me put it that way.
There we go.
If he frowned at him.
Just the look.
It does take a little bit to get me, riled up.
Sure.
That's not my nature. I don't try to be Mr. Grumpy Pants, but
I'm sure you have some hot button issues.
If I get to the point where I have to be boiled over, then it's usually I'm pretty vocal.
Yeah.
And
you're German.
Yeah. Like there's been times I've been so upset I've thrown stuff. That, like I said, that doesn't normally happen, but you laugh. I've been, never mind.
I think we've all gotten to a point where you get that angry.
This was going to be a free floating.
Oh, this is a free for all. Yeah,
free for all. Yeah,
that's all right. It's 25 episodes. We can do.
So
what we
we're
want
trying
now.
to dig in deep to Steve's personality.
Yeah, right.
What makes him tick?
So, to get back to this new opportunity, what kind of will you be doing as a rep for U.S. Law Shield?
Yeah, so I'll be visiting ranges, stuff over there in Eastern Idaho, gun stores, and just spreading the word. Like you're saying, being an evangelist for that kind of thing.
U.S. Law Shield in the firearms community.
I really do believe in the product. Like I said, I think it's important to have a safety net as a gun owner, because if you use a gun, it's expensive. Yeah, it's nice to have. So we have insurance on our cars, on our life, right, on our toys. Why not have it on our firearms?
Yeah, and the need to defend yourself if it comes up.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be thinking about when you are pulling the trigger is, how am I going to defend myself? How am I going to keep myself out of jail now?
Yeah.
Well,
it's like if that guy, and I hate saying it that way, because it's like you do need to always worry about, is this a legal thing that I'm doing? That's one of the things that we train in our CCW classes, things like that. But if that guy is progressing towards you or that person and you feel like you need to use deadly force, you need to be able to use deadly force and use it quick.
Yeah, and I would say the last thing that should be on your mind if you're in a life or death situation is how am I going to pay for it afterwards?
And in Idaho, we still have some somewhat common sense in the legal system, I feel. You step out of Idaho, you go to Washington, you go to Oregon, California,
Illinois.
Yeah, they're gonna do
Colorado.
everything. They're gonna look at your gun. They're gonna say, "Oh, you stippled that grip. You did that to make a killing machine."
Yep, and you've got the Spartan logo on your grip. You wrote Moen Labe on your gun. Why'd you do that?
Yep.
And you're going to jail forever.
Could be.
Well, even down to the ammo you use.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, we've talked about it before, where people are packing Full Metal Jacket ammo while they carry,
or that RIP ammo, which I despise.
Yeah, I hate that.
I think you didn't
looks
want to name
cool.
that last time.
It looks
I'll name
cool,
it now. Yeah,
but it's not.
it's
What
it's
you would
interesting.
want to use.
It's interesting. The terminology of it is pretty interesting when you shoot it into gel or other media. It's pretty interesting how it works, but I wouldn't recommend shooting it.
Well, yeah, it's spiked. It kind of looks like
Well, and those fingers break off and go all sorts of weird
like
directions.
a fletchet round.
yeah, it's
More
more
a shotgun.
seems like it'd be more to maim really than anything else.
Yeah, and just simply having the name
RIP.
RIP.
Yeah, imagine a jury who doesn't really know that much about firearms, and they're told that you specifically loaded RIP ammo in it. It's like,
Well, even me, to be completely honest, if I was on the jury,
really?
yeah, I me knowing firearms, and if I see that they're loading it up and they have,
Sure.
I can't say that I wouldn't be any different. To
Yeah,
say,
I guess
why
that's
did
a
you
fair
use,
point.
Why did you use that ammo? Did you not look at the ballistic gelatin tests with it and know what it does to flesh? It's like we were talking about that one guy in Florida. Even me knowing, especially me knowing, I guess, and going through the CCW training that I have, being an instructor for CCW, and then looking at what this guy did, I would be harsh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be even though I'm a Second Amendment advocate, I'd be pretty harsh.
Yeah, if you messed up or didn't, like you said, the guy in Florida outside the convenience store, when the other guy had his hands up and was backing away and he still shot. So
Bad shoot.
You've got to know, and you've got to be protected. So
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've talked about defensive ammo choices.
Yeah.
I usually lean towards whatever law enforcement carries because they've already done all the studies. They've done, I don't want to say the most humane kill, but in a way it is. Like, it's not going to go through and hurt somebody else, that kind of thing. And so
the least possibility of collateral damage.
Yeah, and I don't know how the best way to put it, but yeah, I usually just pick whatever law enforcement.
Well, in a legal matter too, then you can bring that up as an argument to say, the law enforcement who has to deal with situations like these way more than the average citizen uses these, and that's why you went with it.
Yeah.
They even have the FBI studies as well that you can research.
Yeah, and that information, and when we did our ammo episode, I mean, I had a whole bunch of different reports and stuff that went through all that jive, and there's a lot of information out there. You can go through a sensory overload reading some of it. Or you might geek out on it and really like it too. I don't know.
Yeah, because you like the terminal ballistic stuff and the gel.
Yeah,
and all that.
I find it interesting.
We're going to shoot into windshields
Yeah.
for your going away, right?
Yeah.
We thought we were.
We thought we were.
That'd be interesting.
They're probably all broken up and they moved them outside, and I'm sure they're shattered now.
Busted up. That'd be fun.
Somebody gets wild hair and feel like they have to move things around. That's okay.
We won't get Steve on that.
He's got to let it go for now. So.
Woza.
So yeah, that's the big news from Mr. Steve.
Yeah.
He's still going to be part of the podcast, like I said, but moving on to future endeavors.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard. I have, made a lot of good friends, customers that have been really, really good friends that it's kind of hard to say goodbye to, but I'm still around.
You're still around, and your family's back in Eastern Idaho, and that's the most important.
Yeah, I wasn't. Oh, sorry, kind of blew up there. I wasn't able to get them over here, and that was kind of difficult. So I just decided to.
Because you were driving what, 4 or 5 hours
About
every day,
4.5
or every week?
Not every day. Yeah, I'd stay here in my camper, which is another super awesome activity, right?
And this part of Idaho is
In the summer.
well, it's hard to live here as far as or buy a house here.
Real estate's pretty expensive. I actually thought it was going to change the beginning of the year, but yeah, I was completely off on that one.
Yeah, it's just going to keep going up and up and up.
It's just going to keep going, which is a dynamic that is just, it's part of the
good.
valley.
It's good for the business.
Yeah, the Treasure Valley, which is where we're in, is growing huge. I mean, Meridian, which is just what's the town we're in, and it's the town just west of Boise. I mean, it was like the fastest growing town in America in 2017.
And the weather's awesome over here. Winters are nice. Summers, they get a little warm, but it's pretty even keeled all year long. It's not a bad place to be.
I've noticed in my 2.5 years in the area that, the 2 summers I've had here, there's usually about a week or 2 stretch where it's like 100, 105, 107, and people get a little irritated. Yeah, especially me driving with other people around, and it's hot, and not a big fan of that. So, but yeah,
that's when you have to shave your beard.
Yeah, because it's too hot.
Yeah.
Now, see, it's getting colder. I'm growing it out again. So, but yeah, and that's it's an unfortunate reality that as more and more people come to live here, everything's going to get more expensive, and especially trying to live here.
Yeah, and on top of that, I kind of look a little deeper under the surface. I feel to me, it's more of a reason to carry.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as any place gets bigger, you're going to get the positives. You're going to get more culture. You're going to get a variety of businesses, but you are going to get some folks who,
are less than desirable. It's like maybe the percentage doesn't happen, but the quantity of people moving in, right?
Right. Just the more people means more, more people of all kinds.
Yeah, more good people, but you're also going to get more
criminals,
less
and
than good people,
more poverty, and
everybody's looking for opportunity. So when you increase the population, you're gonna have people looking for opportunities in different ways.
Well, and you get people who think that this is kind of a sleepy little town, or that that you can take advantage of smaller town folk or whatever, but not really. This is a different area.
And Idaho's fast becoming, I think, the gun mecca.
I hope so.
Really?
I really think that. I mean, you're right now. Texas is kind of.
Well, Texas laws really aren't that gun friendly.
No, and the cities are getting so big that they are becoming more anti-gun.
Yeah,
than
Dallas is getting that way.
Yeah, so it used to be that you always hear Texas for firearms.
It used to be super red. Yeah,
don't mess with Texas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's blue, purpley blue.
I would say that Utah, Idaho, Montana, Alaska are kind of the last strongholds for firearms.
Yeah, maybe.
Without, and without me knowing specifically.
Yeah, Arizona has some okay gun laws, but it's just the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say even like Wisconsin's not too bad. There's
Wisconsin.
It's a Wisconsin. Yeah, it's a big state, and it's got 2 big cities, Milwaukee and Madison. But it's still a pretty.
Madison's pretty liberal though.
Yeah, UW Madison is there, so it's a pretty, progressive area. They make our Greenbelt look like child's play. A lot of bicycles. But I mean, you go into the hills.
Hey, look, get out of the trail. I'm trying to pass by.
That's right. Hey there.
Come
Watch
on,
out,
man.
there. Didn't you hear the bell?
Gee whiz, I want a beer and some cheese. Get out of my way.
Where's
wrong with
Madison? Is that up near the border?
It's about an hour north of the border, of Wisconsin and Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually a great town. It's a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of downtown Boise a lot. It's also a capital city, so there's a lot of similarities there.
So let's see, Laverne and Shirley. That wasn't Madison.
That was Milwaukee, which
Milwaukee.
is the bigger city. That's about an hour north or 2 hours north of Chicago.
Shamil.
I'm going to be going to Wisconsin
Haas and Pepper
at the end of October.
Really?
Ooh.
I was in. I spent some time in Waukegan, Wisconsin.
That's
which
Illinois.
Is just right across. Is that
Waukegan
Illinois?
is Illinois, but it's like extreme northeastern Illinois.
Like right at the border, right?
Pretty close.
Because I know that I went into Wisconsin just a little bit. But anyway, now I'm going to go full into there in Cascade something.
Okay.
Because USCCA is over there.
Really?
Their headquarters.
Oh, they're like world headquarters are in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
No way.
So we're going to do training over there.
That's pretty cool.
Steve wasn't invited because he's leaving.
That's why I left. You never invited me.
You didn't get to go on any of the cool parties.
Hey, he got to go to SHOT Show.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that. I want to go to some of those shows.
And I'm going to find my way again in next year.
You could. I bet you could figure it out.
Oh, I got it already figured out.
Is U.S. Law Shield going to
I doubt
send
it.
you?
I don't know. I got to ask him, but I don't think it's that way.
Now I'm curious about where in Wisconsin
U.S. Law Shield is?
U.S. Law Shield
Or
is. Yeah.
no, USCCA.
USCCA. I'm sorry. Steve's offended already.
U.S. Law Shield
I'm an
is
instructor.
all over
I'm
the
a
place.
certified USCCA instructor.
Well, that's actually a good question. Where is U.S. Law Shield based out of nationally?
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Okay.
That's why it was Texas Law Shield first, and then the other states wanted part of it.
Then they went to Colorado, and that's when it took off. And they're like, "Hey, why don't we offer this in more states?"
It's interesting, Colorado.
Yeah,
Colorado does have a lot of gun ranges, though.
Do they? But aren't Colorado's gun laws kind of
they're wavering.
wishy-washy?
Yeah.
Don't they have mag caps and stuff too?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Once pot came in, they said, "Oh no, no guns, no guns."
No guns.
I know
Yeah,
that might not be quite accurate, but
It was right around the same time.
pretty
though.
close to the same time.
Magpul was there, and then they went down to Texas.
So then you
Yeah.
see how the liberal mindset is very ungun friendly. Yeah, well, you know what I'm trying to say. So yeah,
Ungun friendly,
yeah,
anti-gun.
anti-gun,
There we go.
gun hatred.
That was actually a question that I had for both of you. Why do you think that, it seems politics and gun rights go so hand in hand,
I think honestly, if you look at where the heart of, and we say liberal, so we're not saying Democrat or anything, because we know that a lot of even Democrats, there's a lot of Democrats that like firearms.
There's a lot of great Democrat gun owners.
Yeah, but if you think of liberal in that sense of like, politically,
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it because that was really awkward. But anyway, if you look at where those beds are for liberal, it's more in the bigger cities.
Sure.
So you start removing yourself from the country where firearms were always tools, what we've talked about before. They were always tools. So then you start going into these bigger cities. You don't need those tools of killing anymore. And those were air quotes. But and then you get this mindset of law enforcement will always be there to protect you.
And the government is here to protect you. That's a real liberal left Democrat idea, is that the government's job is to protect you. And
in reality, I mean, you go through you look this up on the internet. It says it over and over again. Cops can't respond in time. I mean,
right.
The average, we've said this numerous times on the podcast, the average shooting is done in 9 seconds.
Yeah, no cop's going to be there that fast unless they happen to be right there. And, what was always interesting from my perspective is that in the country, out in the middle of nowhere, it takes, 15, 20 minutes, maybe even an hour, depending on where you're at, for cops to come at, or anybody, emergency services, fire, anything like that. The same thing can be said in a major city. It may take them 20, 30, 40 minutes to get to wherever you are because traffic can be insane. There's not enough police officers or emergency responders to get to you where you need to be. Maybe in some places, it can be quick. But you can't, guarantee that, and you can't necessarily rely on that. And so I think it's just interesting that, a small town or rural areas and big cities have the same kind of problem if you think about it.
Yeah.
But I guess I identify more independent because I have views that kind of cross both sides of the aisle.
And my whole life I've always been Republican. Like, I've always identified myself, even as a very young age, I've always been pretty political minded, very, very young. And so I kind of aligned myself more with like Ronald Reagan, and because that stuff just made sense to me as a kid. And then the older I get, I kind of go from conservative, then I kind of starting to bleed over into the more independent side where
Really?
Yeah,
because you have the pendulum is swinging and it keeps swinging more and more and more, that you say you're Democrat or you say you're Republican. That stuff's getting pretty extreme.
Well, and honestly, I believe in personal accountability, right? So, maybe you do legalize marijuana, but then maybe some of the penalties for what people do when they're under the influence are greater, right?
Sure, just like if you're under the influence of alcohol.
And that might deter the person from,
think a little bit more responsibly.
And a lot of times those problems might just sort themselves out.
Sure.
Realize, man, that's a dumb idea because I'll go to prison. And maybe that's the wrong point of view. I don't know. But, I think the older I get, the more independent I start to think.
Yeah. I think, honestly, a lot of reasonable folks kind of probably have started to think that way in the last couple of years. Say what you will about any politics. We're not going to dive into politics that much, but it's just something that's always been interesting to me is that, like I said, I kind of lean more independently. My views are kind of scattered across either side of the aisle.
Which makes you have to do your homework.
Very much so.
You can't just rely on, this guy's the Republican, I'm just going to vote for Republican.
And in a way, again, we didn't really want to get into political conversation, but in a way that makes it more important to pay attention to who to vote for. So right now, we got some Democrats, pretty liberal Democrats running for governor. And I imagine there's probably some people that are fed up or don't like the idea of who's on the Republican ticket.
Sure.
And they're thinking, well, maybe we just need to reset. That may or may not be a good idea because you don't know what that you're going to get.
Yeah, well, that like Ricky said, the pendulum swings one way, and then it's going to swing the other way, and it could maybe swing hard in one direction or another. But it's always kind of irked me because there's some things I agree with that are more of a liberal take on things, and then obviously Second Amendment supporter, and some things on the conservative side of things, and it's just like it always is like And I'll just say this: it's like, why can't we all have free healthcare and guns all at the same time? Or like why you said like legalizing marijuana, but
I don't necessarily agree with the whole free healthcare system because I look at Canada, terrible, Cuba, awful.
Sure.
Any place that the government gets involved, think of the United States Postal Service and Amtrak. Both are shining examples of what happens when the government gets involved.
Hey, you know what though? Thanks to the USPS, I can actually see on my phone how much junk mail I'm going to get, so I don't even have to go to the mailbox anymore. It's great. And there's obviously criticisms of that, and I'm just throwing that out there as an example.
And I think the first question, the original question was, why do you think that the inner cities are so negative on gun?
The bigger or the more population that the state has,
and I think it comes down to that there's an agenda on the uber liberal, uber left side about control, and that's what it comes down to is control. You can't control an armed populace because they can defend themselves. So if you beat down the man, or the man beats you down, and then takes your ability to protect yourself or defend yourself and your family, i.e. Detroit, I think would be a great example as far as that's concerned, where there are incredibly strict gun laws. Democratic leadership over the last, 40 years, and it's a mess. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Idaho or Montana or Wyoming, where it's a little bit more free. I guess it is a pretty conservative.
But ultimately, it will change. Yeah. Ultimately, it will become bigger in the state as population grows. Yeah. Worldwide, I mean, you're going to eventually have a bigger population in the Boise area. I mean, fast forward 35 years, 45 years from now, do we have 2 million people in this valley?
Oh, probably more than that.
And at that point, now you're approaching those other cities.
Yeah, you're getting to a major city at that point.
Yeah, and Boise is fairly liberal. Boise. Respect.
You can see it. Yeah. You can see it when you drive downtown.
Yeah. Sure.
You can see the more liberal.
Not that's bad. It's nice.
Clean.
It's nice to have.
It's beautiful.
It's nice to have perspective on both sides. I think that's healthy. Mm-hmm. I think it's healthy for the populace to have both ends of the spectrum that can healthily communicate their ideas back and forth, not try and force their ideas. And left and right side both have issues communicating.
Hence it gets so polarized.
Yeah. Well, passionate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a difference between passionate and then just yelling at the other person.
Yeah.
I think because we have healthy discussion here.
Yeah.
I don't think we've necessarily We haven't had a heated discussion yet, but
I hope we don't. But it might end up that way some point.
Maybe when you're on the other side of the computer.
But I look at these like Fox News where they have people sitting around and they have heated discussion.
Yeah,
They hate each other.
I think some of that is probably theatrics. In a way.
People like
Very
the
much so.
spicy.
Yeah, it gets attention.
Yeah.
But
that's really what's missing is discourse. Like healthy communication is gone, and some of that is because of these phones. Right? I'll just text them. Right? There's no communication there other than words.
Or social media.
Communication is so much more than something you read on a screen. Ricky can say something, and if I read it, it could have a totally different meaning than him saying it to my face.
That's why you have emojis.
Yeah.
Well, there's in communication. I mean, I went and studied communications in college, and you learn about, nonverbals and about the different kinds of communication. And, in-person communication is a two-way thing. You get instant feedback from, your message from somebody. And not to mention, you get the inflection if it's just audio, or, like I said, in person, you can see my hands moving and all that kind of stuff. And that translates over. Yeah. But if it's just a text or if it's just a Facebook post, there's really no context and you really can't tell what's going on with it.
I think all of us have either pissed somebody off or been pissed off at a text.
Oh, yeah.
And the sender didn't mean to. Mm-hmm. Right?
I've pissed you off.
Every day.
It's happened.
Well, I think the other thing to go back to the politics is that when you live in a big city or near one and you live in a rural area or a smaller town, your priorities are different. Mm-hmm. And so what's going to be most important to you, or what you see in certain contexts is going to change your idea too. Where here in, more rural area, guns are more utilitarian, guns are more for recreation, for sporting, for hunting. In Chicago, and I think my aunt brought this up in the last episode, is that a lot of people in Chicago or bigger cities associate guns with gangs. Yeah. And that's the only way that they ever interact with firearms. And so they always associate firearms with bad people.
Well, and I think that super liberal leftist media has been very successful at demonizing a gun. Very successful. They look at school shootings, which obviously those are tragic. I don't want to trivialize that kind of stuff. Any kind of shooting, any kind of loss of life, whether it be a knife, a gun, a car, whatever, is tragic, right? It's going to impact families forever. But when you demonize something to the point where kids are scared, and we've talked about this before, you can't even make the whole finger gun thing in school, otherwise you get expelled, and it's ridiculous. The other day, I handed my kid a book about the Constitution and then the copy of the Constitution, and I said, read this, and I want an 800-word report. I'm not going to do, what is this, school? It's like, I want an 800-word report on what you just read.
It's important.
I doubt he gets it, but I did ask them what the first 4 rights guaranteed in the First Amendment were.
And did they know?
They struggled with one, but most people struggle with it too. Can you guys name them?
Well, first, freedom of the press.
Yep.
That's
freedom
one.
of religion.
2.
Yep. Freedom of free assembly.
Assembly, yep.
Freedom of...
And that's the one my kids got.
Oh, the assembly one was...
He was so close and he couldn't get it.
Speech.
Free speech, right? Is
that goes under freedom of press.
Yeah. What is that?
This is... wow.
Yeah, see.
We know who the real patriot is
we
here.
need to...
Okay, so I'm not going to tell you.
Educate
and
me,
I want
Steve.
the listeners... well, they're probably going to figure it out, but...
They're screaming at us right now.
Yeah.
Come on, it's this, you idiots.
It's freedom to petition your government.
Oh, freedom of petition. Okay.
Okay, so that brings me up into the topic that I wanted to talk about.
Ooh, yeah.
If you were done with your thought, it is an awesome transition.
Sure, we can...
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
No, okay, so it's not exactly petition, but so recently we had the Second Amendment Alliance put on that gun rally downtown Boise.
Which I missed. I wish I would have been able to go,
But one of the speakers in that was Ammon Bundy. Now, the backstory with the Bundys is, and I'm just going to give a very Cliff Notes version of this. Steve's making sour faces. But anyway, the Cliff Notes version of this is they're down in southern Nevada, mm-hmm. and they were grazing cattle on BLM property, BLM land. And BLM had told them time and time again, you need to pay your leasing fees for this land for grazing rights. And they weren't paying it because they said, hey, we were pioneers. Our family were pioneers. They came over to this land. We settled this this land. We homesteaded it, and then you, the federal government, came in and basically took over our property, what was our land, mm-hmm. and we're not going to pay you any dang fees because this is our land. Fast forward quite a few years after all this stuff is going on, the government takes the land by force, moves the cattle off by force, raises this big old fiasco, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will remember this. But there's people coming in from Florida, from all over the country to now fight against the government. You had park rangers, BLM officers, border control, I think, was there, or border patrol. Law enforcement, just regular law. It was a big deal. Federal agencies all over the place.
And I don't know if people really understood how thin that ice really was.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was one shot.
One shot
would have been war. Mm-hmm. That's all it took. All it would have taken. And so you have Ammon Bundy going up. There was one, I think there was at one point where somebody let their dog loose on him, one of the border patrol, or maybe that it was right close to it. Ammon was coming up to the federal agent who had a dog, you know. So anyway, it was tense. And so my question with them, and there were people pointing guns at federal officers, state officers, you know, rifles, high-powered rifles. When does it become okay? And with this hinging on the revolution, mm-hmm. because our founding fathers would have been held for treason and would have been lynched, or worse.
Yep.
I don't know. Had we have not won the Revolutionary War. When does it become okay to go against your government?
Sure. I think in my perspective, and I'll be happy to. So I bit my tongue quite a bit. So there's parts about the Bundy story that I think I despise them in some aspects of their the actions that they took. I think were completely wrong in some aspects. But others, I agree with what they did. I mean, I think in Nevada, I think they were 100% correct. When they brought it to Oregon, I think they lost all of my faith in their cause.
You think you're saying, so what you're saying is they crossed a line in your book at some point when they did that?
I think what they did is like taking control of that ranger station, whatever it was in Oregon, that I couldn't support them anymore because it felt like they were just kind of poking the bear, in my perspective. I could be wrong, and people can disagree with me, and that's cool. I think also we need to look at the administration that was in control at that point. The Obama administration was completely, he was dead set on passing laws that made guns gone, 100% gone. If you look at like the Fast and Furious deal that they did, where they were running guns illegally and then trying to we could talk about this. Oh man, I learned some stuff the other day that blew my mind about what the ATF was doing with the Fast and Furious that is absolutely despicable.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like there's no corruption in the government.
And we can talk about that off air. Some of the stuff they were doing to force FFL holders to sell guns illegally, and then turn around and
then prosecute
for something that they told them they were supposed to do. Despicable.
Yeah.
So there's 100% there's corruption in the government. So yeah, in a way to stand up against the government, I think it's important to put the government in check. Honestly, they need to be reminded who's in charge. We hired them to represent us. They're not our bosses. We're their bosses. And I think that gets lost in translation quite a bit. The problem is getting to the point where we can communicate with them without being branded like crazy, right? Oh, these guys
are on the fringe of society.
They're just lunatics. Look, they're carrying guns. And in a way, and I think, like I was saying, I think when they went to Oregon, they went from people trying to defend something to being the crazies with guns.
Mm-hmm. Or to going on the offense or making a statement.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, to me, they lost their credibility.
Yep. Yeah, and it's very interesting because we reposted that mm-hmm. on our website and we put it on a newsletter. I mean, we wanted people to go to that rally.
Yeah, and we saw some of the comments on that Facebook feed where people are like, "Oh, well, I'm not going."
If it were anybody but Ammon Bundy, I would be going.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to support that. you have those people that go because of him, you know, and it's like,
and then you look back, like you brought back revolutionaries. Well, that has a negative connotation, right? The Revolutionary War, where we declared our independence. What really was the difference? We had a tyrannical government that was trying to force us to do everything. Every jot and tittle had to be under the okay of the king or his magistrates that he put in the states. No, we're a sovereign country. You don't know what needs to happen here. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, and hopefully we don't get to the point where we have to have another revolution. My fear is people were going to believe that we need to have another revolution, and they're going to
try to force it.
Yeah,
they're going to try to like what you're saying in Oregon. They poke that bear, and whereas and see, I'm just like, I struggle in myself because I'm like, it was not okay to be pointing guns at federal officers,
and it's not okay for them to point guns back either. I think it makes more sense for like the Martin Luther King approach. Go with love.
Nonviolence.
He believed in carrying guns. He had armed guards, but he didn't go around saying, "Hey, I got a gun and I'll shoot you if you attack me." No, it's put me in jail. What are you gonna prosecute me with? I haven't broken the law. Go for it. The message was the same, but the approach was completely contrast.
And there's a difference, I think, too, between defending, what you believe is yours, and going on the offense to make a statement about something. If you're going to challenge the government on something, if you're going to do it with guns and do it illegally, or what is technically illegally,
or on the verge of something
of violence,
violence.
Yeah, you're gonna,
which I don't believe is the answer.
Right, and you're gonna be having a lot more problems, and you're gonna have a lot less people believing in what you're saying.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there was who was that gentleman that lost his life in Oregon? Oh, he had a weird name now. I forgot what it was. It was on the tip of my tongue, and I lost it. That was an unfortunate thing, and it was tragic. The way that happened shouldn't have happened, and I believe in that case the government needs to be held responsible for that particular. That was wrong. It looked like they were getting ready to surrender. He got out of the car and boom, they got blasted.
Mm-hmm. And that's intentions, run high that way, and things, like you said, Ricky, it'd be one shot could have done it, and that could have been just from somebody with an itchy trigger finger or something like that. It was a mistake. I think what's interesting is just if you wanted to have a Second Amendment rally, having somebody who's such a divisive character or a divisive person kind of tarnishes what we're trying to accomplish with it. That's the only issue.
That's the way I saw it.
It's kind of like the guy that carries. It's kind of like the guy that open carries the AR in Walmart. Stupid.
Yeah, there's a better way to do things that way.
Is his message?
You look like a buffoon.
Is the message that he's trying to convey wrong? No. How he's trying to share the message is ridiculous.
Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. And, to go back to your original question about when it's okay, I think it's really actually just a personal question that I think maybe nobody really asks themselves. What's that? For me, I don't know what that is necessarily. I've never asked myself that question. But I think, everybody has a line in the sand.
Yeah, where is that line? Everybody's line is different. Mm-hmm. Even it looked like in the Bundy situation a few years back, everyone had agreed on this line without actually verbally agreeing. They said this is too far.
Yeah, and I think a lot of America agreed in the Nevada portion of that story.
I'll tell you my original thought was, they were over there. That was their land.
Yeah.
So start recognizing people's rights,
Right.
But I mean, you can say the same thing about the Native Americans. We chased them off their land.
That's true.
So they can claim that, and it's just like, so how far does that go? Or can you just say, you know what? We live in a country where we do have to share.
And do the Bundys pay taxes? Probably. Mm-hmm. Where do those taxes go? Department of Interior, I'm sure, takes a portion. Department of Interior controls BLM. So they did pay their fees. And for the government to ask more and more money, I mean, that's just bureaucracy, right? It's something
it's so convoluted.
And we've allowed it. We've allowed it to happen instead of being engaged. We just, I got too many other things to worry about, and I got to worry about this too.
The other thing that you can criticize, I think, in the Nevada situation was the response of the government, that there was this huge show of force.
Yeah. And you know what it kind of reminded me of, and maybe you guys don't remember it so much because I'm so much older than you.
Ancient.
Is the Waco thing with Bill Clinton and Janet Reno when they went into the Branch Davidian compound. That was ridiculous. And shame on the Clintons for how far that went when it shouldn't have gone that far. I don't know if you guys were probably pretty young.
Didn't it light on fire? Or
yeah,
something?
The building caught on fire.
The Branch Davidians did set it on fire.
And there was some weird stuff going on there too. I mean, they weren't perfect angels, right? But I mean, they brought everything out, helicopters and SWAT. And,
well, it just shows how messy things can get very quickly. In Waco, they did have automatic weapons and things of that sort, and that was their reasoning to go in there. But I think they tried to break in initially from the get-go in full SWAT gear and everything.
But I don't know if they started the fire, if it was a gas grenade or something that started the building on fire.
I think they did prove at some point that it was the Branch Davidians who started the fire.
Yeah,
to burn themselves.
That was so long ago.
Yeah, because there was a whole... I watched a documentary. There's actually a really good documentary from... Oh, crap. There's just a really good documentary from it's in a news organization or somewhere, and about, David Koresh and all that kind of stuff, and all the stuff that he was preaching was...
They were a little weird. I'm not saying they didn't have issues.
Yeah, I mean, but there was a lot of... it was a cult, for lack of a better term. It was totally a cult, and they were talking about, moving on to the next plane or the next world or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And so, they ended up finding out in the investigation that they did set the fire. But, their argument was that they weren't hurting anybody. They weren't, holding anybody hostage. Mm-hmm. It was all voluntary. And they weren't, they had their land and that was it or whatever. So that's where it can kind of get a little gray, I guess.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question again, it's that what's your line in the sand? And I think that's different for everybody. And to go back to the revolutionary thing, I think a lot of people use that kind of talk. I've told it before, I wish they would kind of people. Like you said, people who open carry an AR at Walmart or whatever, it's like they're looking for that. It's more of like an offense kind of thing.
Yeah. And
that's not the way to do it.
It's the hothead approach.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think of how long before the revolution were they having issues?
It was years, or
it was
even
hundreds
a decade,
and hundreds
decades.
of years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was from Plymouth Rock on.
Yeah,
there was always influence from the crown. For me, I wish for people to find their line in the sand, I wish they would kind of go back to some of the founding documents and get back to what the country was founded on, right? And really understand that. I think, we watch Fox News or we watch CNN, and then what we think the Constitution really was gets cloudy. And it doesn't really get taught in schools like it used to. And like I said, that's why I gave my kid the Constitution and a book about the Constitution. I wanted him to have some perspective and the actual document. I told him I got the Federalist Papers. He can read that. He probably won't get excited about that. But I wish people would spend a little bit more time on the country. But I don't know. That's just me.
Sure. Well, it's just like the personal question of, what is worth going to jail over? Mm-hmm. What's worth dying over, to protect your family or... to protect your property or anything like that. What are you willing to sacrifice to do that? And I think nowadays we live in a society, and maybe for a long time we have, where you don't have to think about that every day, or you don't have to worry about that. And so that it's not an easy truth to deal with or an easy conversation to have.
Well, there's so many new stresses, on people. So they have financial stress. They might have school that they have to pay for, that they don't have a job to pay for the schooling they took. So you got all these outside stresses that are really pushing on them, and it creates frustration. They might get frustrated. They go, well, I'm going to take up, here you got Antifa, those guys, they want to take up arms to make a revolution, right? Well, this is the way it should be. What changes them from me? I get frustrated with the government. I don't get paid enough money. I got stresses I got to deal with. I want to make a change. So who's wrong and who's right? Yeah. That's why I think we're getting back to the core of what the Constitution was, and understanding who wrote the Constitution, what was going on when they did that, why were they protesting against the king, that kind of stuff. I don't know.
It's important to know the context of which, and the historical context of which the revolution happened, because it's serious stuff. It was a big deal.
And honestly, some of those things might be parallel right now with what we're dealing with.
Could be. It depends on how you interpret it, though, and what the context is. But like you said, you have to do your own research and figure out what that is.
We talked about Scalia. Quite a few episodes now ago, we're talking about the Heller case. His perspective was you got to go back to the originality of the context, and to understand what the Second Amendment was,
and it's a lot more than just reading the document. You got to understand what life was like back then too.
Yeah.
I heard a historian just recently say, history is a foreign country. The people, even if they were in your same country, even 100 years ago, life was different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
People functioned differently. Their mentality was different.
Well, they had to...
These are your ancestors.
They had to fight the time of day to plant the garden. Yeah. They had to be in front of the weather to make sure crops got planted on time. They had to deal with planting, growing, harvesting, making sure they weren't getting attacked in the middle of the night.
They literally had to worry about eating and where their next meal was going to come from.
And
they didn't have a McDonald's right down the road.
They didn't have a doctor.
Well, I think
there was all sorts of things. That's why life was like 40. 40 was the average death age, somewhere around there.
Well, and infant mortality was like
super high.
But even I would say 20 years ago. I think I'm old enough now to say 20 years ago. Was completely different before smartphones, before the internet, before social media.
Yeah, I can remember I was like 11 or 12 when we got our first computer, AOL dial-up.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was. When I was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Yeah, doing all that. But no cell phones.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And you went out on your own as a kid on your bike. I remember being like 7 years old and riding around the suburbs, on a bicycle on my own.
Yeah, well, and that's bike was, I rode, during one time in my life, I would ride 60 miles a day on my bike.
Really?
Visiting friends, because I lived at very rural.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a car. I didn't have a driver's license.
60 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the snow, uphill both ways.
Yeah, that's right. I had to wrap
shoes?
Barbed wire around my tires, all that to get it. No, but for real, I would ride a long way because, I was out in the middle of the sticks.
Yeah.
And so to get to my friend's house, if I didn't want to be locked away forever, I'd have to ride my bike.
I think that there's just so much.
You sound like a Disney cartoon almost.
I can just see Ricky with like one of those hobo sticks with the pouches on the back on his bicycle whistling a tune. But I think the world has just changed so rapidly in the last 20, 25, 30 years that nobody really knows what to do right now, and there's a lot of things being challenged. Actually, one of the things that I was going to bring up was Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed, and talking about 3D printing gun parts and the Liberator pistol.
He's in trouble again. Did you
now
know?
He's in major jail.
What's going on there?
I find that intriguing.
I bet you do. I was thinking you were going to go that route.
Is he's in trouble
timing.
Because of?
Well, he got arrested in Taiwan. And extradited back to the U.S. because he supposedly paid for sex with a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy side of me that says, this is interesting.
Steve's got his tinfoil hat on with that.
Well, there's so much going on with that guy. And do you know what's silly is you can still download files from other people online to do the same thing.
Oh, you can find it anywhere, yeah.
Yeah. And he's not doing anything different.
You're just saying the timing is very convenient.
Yeah, because he's this whole last couple of years with this, he's pretty much said a big F you to the government this whole time. So it's just kind of interesting to me. And it might be legit, but the timing is awfully interesting.
It's odd timing, yeah. But and if you don't know who Cody Wilson is, he is the owner of Defense Distributed. He came up with the first 3D printed gun, which is the Liberator. It's a single shot 22 pistol.
Yeah.
And it works. for a couple shots. It's not, you got to reload it. Yeah. It's a single shot every time, but it works. You can download the files and you can make it on a 3D printer. And just like you can download and 3D print a AR-15 lower receiver.
Sure.
And they were about to, they got shut down, but they were able to have a website for a lot of different 3D printable gun parts.
Which is 100% legal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's legal to make your own firearms.
Well, and doesn't that fall under freedom of the press?
That's what the fight is. They're not only infringing on Second Amendment rights for possessing a way to defend yourself, but First Amendment rights, freedom of speech. And that's where the fight's been.
Well, and see, here's the thing. So what you were talking about with it being a very convenient time, I think of Al Capone. We were talking about this the last podcast.
Tax evasion.
Yeah. Tax evasion. They couldn't pin him on anything else.
Right.
So they're watching him, and they're getting on tax evasion.
Waiting for one thing.
It might be legitimate. It might be very well legitimate, but they're keeping eagle eyes on him because they want to take him down somehow.
Well, just like with Martin Luther King, you brought up MLK, and there was, and this is real deal stuff, they sent an audio tape, I believe, of MLK having an affair. They sent it to his wife, and then they sent a letter to MLK saying that he should kill himself. And this is the FBI doing this. This is J. Edgar Hoover doing this.
Of course it was.
And so if they did, if the government did that stuff back in the day, I don't disagree with what you're saying about that this is very convenient timing. I don't know really what the guy's character is like. He's definitely an interesting character, and he's very virulently, in support of free speech and gun rights and stuff. But he calls himself an anarchist, so there's that.
Yeah, which doesn't help him.
Yeah, so talking about maintaining your image or whatever, but and it's weird because he's our age. He's 30 years old. Well, not Steve's age.
I'll be 40 next month. Yeah. I'm not that old.
He has cobwebs on him, just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
But, he's not an old guy. He's not your typical old white guy kind of person. He's a young guy, and it's about technology. And
where's he from?
I believe he's from Texas.
Yeah. In some ways, I totally support the guy.
Oh yeah, I was talking to my father-in-law and my brother-in-law.
Not if there's child sex crime in there.
Not that.
Right.
But no, I'm like, what's the big deal?
There is no big deal. What is
the big deal of printing guns? Who cares?
Yeah.
You can make a gun out of a pipe and a nail and a spring. It is not that hard.
Yeah. Well, and there's.
So it's like,
have you guys ever heard of the Anarchist Cookbook?
I have heard.
Don't let the name throw you off.
No, I have never heard of it before.
Well, for those who don't know, if you've never heard of it, it's a book that was actually written in the 1970s by a guy who actually kind of regrets writing it now. But it tells you how to make bombs. It tells you how to. He basically took all these publicly released military manuals on survival, on assassinations, on guerrilla warfare, on improvised explosives, and he compiled all this information in a book, called it The Anarchist Cookbook, and published it. And it sold, millions and millions of copies. You can get it online. It's interesting that the government doesn't really go after that. Because
I don't know if you can buy it anymore. Let me pull it up on Amazon.
I think you can, or you can at least get a digital copy of it.
On your computer, not on my phone.
I'm sure you can still get it, whether that's online or whatever.
Well, here's the other thing: is Amazon's starting to pull back on firearm-related book sales. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah,
because guns are scary.
So let's see.
But I can find anything on probably child sex on Amazon in the book.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You can find. The thing is, you're not going to stop getting people, or you're not going to stop people getting what they want. Prohibition didn't stop people from drinking. Gun laws don't stop people from getting guns.
And if guns get to that point, there's going to be
that may be the line in the sand for some people.
Well, and it's going to increase backyard gunsmiths, right? It's going to increase that stuff, and the guns are going to be unsafe. There'll probably be way more guns than what's available now.
Well, look in...
what are those people? Is it Taiwan or the Philippines, or where was the Colt factory?
Yeah, the Philippines, where they're making 1911s out of like...
Good 1911s.
Yeah.
With a file.
Yeah,
handmade.
And a block of metal.
They're great counterfeit guns, but no serial numbers.
Yeah.
And they don't make good money there when they're hand fitting them in their backyard. But there is law enforcement that's trying to crack down on them there. But when they make it from the Philippines to whatever the next step is to America, they might make 10, 15 American dollars for all the work they do, but the black market sells them for a couple $100, you know, and they're untraceable.
Yeah, it's amazing that, I mean, by hand they're making this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And they're in like the jungles doing this stuff, and
they have to do it. They have to be
out of the way.
What is that show? There's the show about it on Netflix, or
maybe it was on CNN or something.
Yeah,
was it called Ghost Guns or something?
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
it was something weird.
That
like
is
that.
really interesting, but it just goes to show you when there's,
And that's a fancy gun.
Yeah.
You don't need to get that fancy.
No, like
so people,
a spring, a nail, and a tube.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was actually, I heard a story. There was a guy who was like heard about a gun buyback program.
Yeah, there was a kid that.
Yeah, so he made a slam fire shotgun out of, you know, whatever you need to make that with, and he turned it in and he got like $200 for it.
Yeah, he spent like $15 in parts.
Yep. But going back to the Anarchist Cookbook, yeah, you can buy it on Amazon right now. The hardcover version is $25.22.
Maybe you should buy me a copy.
The paperback version, so yeah, because you've never read it before.
Oh, never.
The paperback version starts at $900.
What?
So it's not in circulate. It's not published anymore. So there's like a limited number of copies.
I see.
But I mean, there's enough copies to go around. You can buy it in hardcover for $25 right here.
That's interesting.
So,
well, and you can buy military survival manuals and improvised at gun shows. I mean, you can buy those things anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really can.
So ridiculous.
So it's interesting that I do agree that it's weird timing, but Cody Wilson is an enigmatic character.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, and maybe he really did do this, and maybe he's, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe he's
it could have happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I just find it intriguing.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it's, you know, it's bleeding. It kind of bleeds over from the Second into the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad that people do things.
Yeah.
And it's sad that the government exploits things that shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, and to continue.
But if that's true, then yeah.
Then he deserves to go to jail.
He needs to go to jail.
And that's what I meant to say, is that if that stuff's true, then you effed up and you're going to jail, buddy, and that sucks because
and he can enjoy whatever he receives in jail.
Exactly.
Well, and that was Taiwan. So is he going to jail in Taiwan?
No, I think he got extradited. We never hear from him again. But no, he's extradited back to the U.S. So charged with sexual assault, a second-degree felony. Mm-hmm. So, and he left the country and he missed his flight back home, which is why he got arrested and extradited back to the U.S.
Maybe he's hanging out with Julian Assange.
Maybe, but it's. So yeah, who knows what's going to become of that? Yeah. But do your research on Cody Wilson. He's an interesting character, and you know, if that's true, like I said,
if it's true, he deserves everything
he's
gets.
done. But he does bring up some interesting points about 3D printed guns and you know, the Second Amendment and all that kind of stuff. So you know, just interesting story in the firearms world.
For a non-political episode, this has been pretty political.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put a disclaimer at the beginning of this one. Well, let's switch gears, and this will be the last thing we talk about for now. On a lighter note, we're talking about downtown Boise and
candles.
How it's a little bit more progressive and liberal and things like that.
No, you said a non-political conversation.
Well, I have.
Oh, I know what you're bringing up.
Right here, that this just kind of goes to show that even if downtown or anything is a little bit more liberal, firearms are viewed, I think, differently in Idaho, like Ricky said, a little bit than anywhere else. Because I was interviewed by a reporter on the Boise Weekly, or from the Boise Weekly, I'm sorry. Her name is Lex Nelson, and she wrote an article called "Shot Through the Heart: In Boise and Beyond, Couples Are Taking Romance to the Gun Range." And they're talking, and she wanted to report, and she didn't want to talk about politics. There's actually no gun politics in this article.
Which is good.
But they talk about taking people to the range as a date, you know. And so she found me and wanted to interview me. Thank you. About me taking my girlfriend to the range and what that was like and my reasoning behind that. And so I interviewed I was interviewed by her and I was quoted in here, and they talked about the Range Minded podcast because I told her, I'm the producer for the podcast. So we were in the Boise Weekly, which is pretty cool.
It wasn't negative.
It wasn't negative, no. She also actually interviewed Ryan, GM Ryan, and a couple other folks about,
She didn't interview me.
Going shooting.
It's because she knew you were leaving.
Yeah.
So
I hate her.
She secretly.
I don't. If you're listening,
secretly,
I don't hate you. I'm just kidding.
She secretly interviewed me, but she just didn't put my words.
So she actually went. She went out to BLM land and shot for the first time. Shot a revolver. Shot an AR-15. So
why didn't she shoot here? Because she didn't have a date?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if I don't think she shot here. She was with somebody else. But it's actually a pretty good article. She talks about the first time when she went shooting, and she interviews Ryan. She interviews me, and my whole thing, because she goes, well, why would you take your date to a gun range, as a date? I go, well, it's kind of a test of character. Guns are something that you need to respect and be safe with all the time. And I, said that, safety is first and foremost all the time, every time. And that it's kind of a good judge of character. If somebody is being reckless with a gun, and I actually don't know if I went into this with her, but a former relationship I was in, not the most safe with firearms, where like I felt the need to keep my eyes on her all the time when we were shooting. And
that's why you ended that relationship.
Well, yeah, it was indicative of some other things, personality clashes and kind of a selfishness. But, with my current girlfriend, I took her shooting like the first couple of weeks after we started dating, and very respectful of everything, very safe, very cautious, and that carries over into other things in life. You know what I mean? And there's a reason that I brought her here to Idaho from Illinois.
Well, that's a good article. That's awesome.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out. It's actually at boiseweekly.com too, so I'll link it to the podcast so everybody can check it out.
Ricky, does your wife shoot?
She does, not super often, but she likes it.
She enjoys it?
She enjoys it, yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things
she wants to get more into it.
One of the things I wanted to ask was, how often do you guys see people bring dates to the range?
Not often. I mean, it might happen quite a bit. I think that we should offer like a date night special, something like on a Friday night or something. Personally, I think that'd be cool.
I would agree. Maybe rental and box of ammo or something. I'm just spitballing, but apparently it's a big thing.
What do you guys think? Would you guys out there in podcast land support something like that?
Yeah. Would you take your date? You bring in, because she was in the article. She talks about how husbands and wives or boyfriend, girlfriend or whatever, they'll come and they might do a competition. It's fun to compete or whatever. And my girlfriend, she doesn't shoot all the time. She enjoys shooting. She's not a firearm owner herself. She doesn't need to with how many guns I own, but that's a whole nother story. I'm sure Steve has no idea what I'm talking about.
No. I only have one anyways. I lost the rest of them in a boat fire.
Yeah, Eastern Idaho is full of boat fires, I've heard. Nothing good happens out there.
It was tragic.
And they all sunk down to the
bottom of Palisades, down at the very bottom. In fact, I think they went through the
turbines.
Yeah, the power turbines down there.
Oh, bummer.
So they're gone.
So they're dangerous
forever.
That's a bummer.
But on the bright side, I got a great insurance claim, so I can buy more guns.
Perfect. Yeah. When the time comes.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it anytime soon. That's ridiculous.
No, but
I need time to recover.
I will give Lex, the reporter, kudos, because, like I said, she actually went out and shot.
Lex, I don't hate you, but you can interview me anytime.
She's going to be so offended. We should have her on the podcast.
That would be cool.
That'd be cool.
Was she new to shooting?
Yes, I believe it was her first time, and she was also talking about how she sees more gun stuff on social media as well. Mm-hmm. So
I just learned how to use hashtags.
Ricky figured out hashtags. Did it for the
first time today.
Did we talk about that last time
Welcome
on the podcast?
To 2013, Ricky.
Or was that a private conversation we were talking about hashtags? Private. Ricky's like, I don't even know what a hashtag works.
I called them pound signs. And they all of a sudden turned into hashtags.
And then Sarah in the back, she's like, Ricky, you don't know how to use a hashtag?
Well, when you don't have a smartphone, it's probably harder to use hashtags. So.
Yeah. Welcome, Ricky.
But yeah, I just wanted to point
now
that out.
I'll be one of those people that's like hashtag good time or something like that.
Oh my God, you've created a monster. But I just wanted to give
hashtag pizza.
Wanted to give the Boise Weekly a little shout out.
Thanks, Boise Weekly.
They featured Independence Indoor Shooting. They featured Range Minded, which is great.
They specifically named range-minded.
I know, and me, which is scary.
Oh.
And they described me as Mark Long, a 30-year-old gun enthusiast.
You're famous.
And producer of Independence Indoor Shooting's weekly podcast. You know the part I hate the most there? 30-year-old. Oh, God. See, but what's interesting is, so we're in the small classroom. We actually have a window, so people.
There's a husband and wife or a cute couple there.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 or 5 couples kind of walk past, and they're looking at stuff. And the message behind that is, if you have a significant other that isn't into guns or hasn't shot before, take them shooting, see what they think. Or gun range is a cool date night.
And it's fun. And I wouldn't say it's empowering, but for like maybe he or she, maybe the opposite person in the relationship has never really shot a gun, doesn't know much about it. And it's kind of empowering when you hit a bullseye and this is fun, Yeah. It gives them something to get excited about.
Yeah, they could get hooked, and then that could be something that you do, because in the article, Lex talks about how some couples will actually make it a regular date night, and they like the competition. They'll try to outshoot each other, and we have targets that are kind of competition-oriented, like Battleship, and by the way, we have competitions every other week, to shoot down bowling pins and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, and I was actually really nice. I was flattered that she kind of ended the article with a quote from me. Oh, not to toot my own horn, but what's funny is
your shoulder off, please.
No big deal. But it's funny seeing my spoken words in writing, because I'm like, man, do I really talk like that? And I sure do.
Can you read your quote verbatim?
Yeah, I will. She goes, I'm trying to find the best place to start.
Oh dear.
He's trying to give it a positive
I'll paraphrase a little bit, the conclusion that she was drawing.
You can't paraphrase your own quote.
I'm not going to paraphrase my quote. I'm going to paraphrase her writing a little bit. She goes, I'd be lying if I said I thought shooting an AR-15 was sexy, but I'd also be lying if I said it wasn't fun. Attempting to hit the target had kickstarted my competitive side, and it was easy to imagine a friendly rivalry arising on a date, each of us attempting, as Long and Massey had, to outdo the other with well-placed shots. So then going into what I said, it's a lot more a sport really than anything else. People go out to BLM land or wherever and are making mile-long shots or 1,000-yard shots. People view guns as more than just weapons for self-defense or killing or anything like that around here. I think there's a lot more recreation and utilitarianism.
Mark Long.
And then she goes, I fell firmly into that lot and had a Swiss cheese target in the pickup bed behind me to prove it.
Boom.
So she had a good time.
She needs to show up more often.
Yeah, so maybe we need to have Lex on the podcast and see what she thought, and maybe take her out on the range.
That'd be fun.
I think so.
You're invited, Lex.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her.
Did she say she's a listener now?
I don't know. I didn't ask that, but
she'll listen to this podcast.
If she's not a listener, she's not invited.
Jeez, you guys are rough on people.
And she has to share it with 3 friends.
Well, and Steve can't be here because Steve hates her.
I don't hate you, Lex.
Poor woman.
But I wish you would have interviewed me.
So, however, that just goes to show that I think the sport of shooting transcends all creeds, colors, genders, and political spectrums. I
always felt if you get somebody who isn't familiar with so much or may have this negative connotation towards guns, if they get them a chance to get them in a range and do some sport shooting, their eyes open up a little bit and they realize there's a different perspective to it. It's not these evil black guns that just kill school kids on their own.
And to go back to the politics thing is that I think it's more city.
No politics.
It's not necessarily conservative and liberal or Democrat, Republican. No. I think it's city and rural. There's a lot of, one of the things that I learned or I realized driving out here from Illinois, it took 3 days, and I think you learn this really on any mega road trip, is that this country is huge. Mm-hmm. It's a massively huge country, and there's so many different ways to live, even from state to state. But going from Illinois to Idaho, or, I did a couple road trips from Illinois to the East Coast, and just seeing the difference in how people live and all that kind of stuff, you have to learn to respect how other people live.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think the firearms debate really needs to go.
And they need to be range-minded. Boom.
We got to end on that. So
mic drop.
Thank you for listening. We're looking forward to the next episode, and we're looking forward to Steve not going anywhere.
Yeah. I'll be around. And he'll be around the range, so you're not going to miss him.
Well, the nice thing about it is he's going to be just recording himself, and it's up to us to be able to dub him in. So we could just say, we're going to give him a 2-minute slot in this.
Do I need to drive over every week now?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be
to
Ricky's.
ensure. You'll just pop in. Hey guys, I just thought I would come see how you're doing. Oh, you're setting up, and there's another person in my chair. And
I'll get this. Oh, we totally stopped doing that. Didn't you get that email?
Yeah, we started Ricky's podcast instead. So anyway, let us
picked a new Steve.
Let us know what you think.
There's only one.
Send us your comments and all that. Anything you want to podcast@iishooting.com. And
we're like fish in a tank right now.
I know,
What are they doing in there?
Don't feed the podcasters. Check us out on Facebook, Independence Indoor Shooting, iishooting.com/podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can pick it up from as well. Give us some feedback, and we appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. If you've got a comment, question, idea for the show, or any feedback, send us an email to podcast@iishooting.com or send us a message on our Facebook page. Just search Independence Indoor Shooting. Again, thanks for listening to Range Minded. We'll see you next time.